Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. Manderley. Our Manderley. Secretive and silent, as it had always been. Grey stones, shining in the moonlight of my dream. The mullioned windows reflecting the green lawns and the terrace. As I stood there, hushed and still, I could swear that the house was not an empty shell, but lived and breathed as it had lived before. Light came from the windows. The curtains blew softly in the night air. And there, in the library, the door would stand half open. My handkerchief on the table beside the bowl of autumn roses. I stood there, listening, hoping, half expecting to hear the crunch of car wheels on the gravel, to hear footsteps in the hall, to see Maxim standing there, smiling at me.
Winter, the man who owns Manderley. He looks so ill, doesn't he? They say he can't get over his wife's death. Poor man, what a tragedy. We'll ask him over for coffee. Well, why not, for heaven's sake? He'll be grateful, sitting there all by himself. I'll write him a note. Now, where's my pen?
In your handbag.
We're only being friendly after all. He'll be grateful for that. Nothing worse than being lonely in Monte Carlo. Loneliness is always worse when you're surrounded by people enjoying themselves. Now, there. Take that across to the waiter and tell him to bring us another cup.
Why, Mr. De Winter, how sweet of you to join us. I recognized you just as soon as you came through that door. Why, there's Mr. De Winter, I said to myself. There's Billy's friend, Mr. De Winter. He's on his honeymoon now, did you know that? He got married last month, he and Dora.
Billy was telling me that Palm Beach is crowded with the most exciting people. They're having such a lovely time. Thank you so much. Do you know Palm Beach, Mr. De Winter?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's the most wonderful place. So glamorous. Parties every night.
No, I'm afraid I'm not much of a party goer.
You're not? Oh, my Billy just loves them. But then if he had a home like Manderley, I guess he wouldn't want to play around in Palm Beach. Manderley. Isn't that the most beautiful name you ever heard? My Billy says it has all those big places beat for beauty. Why, you could never bear to leave it. Isn't there a minstrel's gallery at Manderley? And some very valuable portraits? Mr. De Winter is so modest he won't admit it, but I believe that lovely home of his has been in the family since the Norman conquests. Isn't that so? I suppose your ancestors must often have entertained royalty at Manderley, Mr. De Winter.
Not since Ethelred, the one who was called the Unready. In fact, it was while he was staying with my family that he was given the name. He was invariably late for dinner.
Is that really so? I'd no idea. But my history is very shaky, and the kings of England always muddled me. But that is very interesting. I must write and tell my daughter she's a great scholar.
Are you staying here long?
Well, that all depends. I have some dear friends in Paris. Or we might go on to St. Moritz. Who knows? I do so adore being fancy-free, don't you?
What do you think of Monte Carlo? Or don't you think of it at all?
Oh, it is very elegant, I suppose. A bit artificial.
She's spoiled, Mr. De Winter. That's her problem. Most girls would give their eyes for the chance of seeing Monty.
Wouldn't that rather defeat the purpose?
I'm faithful to Monty. The English winter gets me down and my constitution just won't stand it. It's those ghastly fogs I hate in London. You don't get them in Manderley, do you? Oh, the West Country must be enchanting in the spring.
Yes, Manderley was looking its best.
Excuse me, Mrs. Van Hopper. Madame Blaise is waiting upstairs.
Madame Blaise, my dressmaker. Oh, great heavens, I quite forgot.
Well, don't let me keep you. Fashions change so quickly nowadays, they may have altered by the time you get to your room.
It's been so delightful running into you like this, Mr. De Winter. Now, I've been brave enough to break the ice. I hope I shall see something of you. You must come and have a drink sometime in the suite. I may have a few people coming in tomorrow evening. Why not join us?
I'm so sorry, but I'm planning to go to Suspel. I don't know when I shall be back.
Oh,
I hope they've given you a good room. The place is half empty, so if you're uncomfortable, mind you make a fuss. Has your valet unpacked for you yet?
I don't possess one. Perhaps you'd like to do it for me.
Well, I hardly think... Perhaps you could make yourself useful for Mr. De Winter if he wants anything done. She's a capable child, in many ways.
It's a charming suggestion, but I stick to the family motto. He travels the fastest who travels alone. Perhaps you've never heard it.
What a funny thing. Numero deux. Suppose that sudden departure was a form of humor. Men do such extraordinary things. I remember a well-known writer who, whenever he saw me coming, used to dart down the service staircase. I suppose he had a penchant for me and wasn't sure of himself. I was younger then, of course.
What happened to Mrs. De Winter?
Oh, my dear, it was dreadful, tragic. They say he never talks about it, never even mentions her name. She was drowned in a bay near Manderley. Achoo!
Mrs. Van Hopper tells me that you're good at sketching.
I enjoyed it.
You must let me see some of your work. I've quite a collection at home. Always looking for new talent, you know.
Oh, I'm sure you wouldn't be interested in me, Mr. Darwin.
Oh, don't you be too sure, my dear.
oh, pardon me. Handkerchiefs? Where are my handkerchiefs?
I'm coming, Mrs. Van Hopper. Excuse me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Get out of the way.
No, please.
You can't sit there, it's soaking wet.
Well, it doesn't matter a bit, really.
No, leave that. Lay a place at my table. Mademoiselle will be lunching with me.
I couldn't possibly.
Why not?
Well, it's very kind of you, but please don't be polite. I'm quite all right here.
I'm not being polite. I would like you to have luncheon with me. Even if you had not knocked over that vase so clumsily, I would still have invited you. Come and sit down. We needn't talk if we don't feel like it.
Melon, please, and grilled sole.
And to drink, mademoiselle?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, mademoiselle. L'américaine ne déjeune pas, mais la petite est casée.
What's happened to your friend?
Oh, she's not feeling very well this morning.
Well, nothing serious, I hope.
The doctor thinks it's influenza, and he's told her to stay in bed.
I behaved very badly yesterday afternoon. You must try to forgive me.
Oh, I didn't...
I was thoroughly ashamed of myself. My manners were atrocious. My only excuse is that I've become boorish through living alone.
Well, you weren't rude. Oh, no ruder than Mrs. Van Hopper. And she didn't mean to be rude. She just, well, she just asks a lot of questions. She does that to everyone. Well, anyone who's important, that is, you know.
Oh, I'm flattered. Why does Mrs. Van Hopper think I'm important?
I think because of Manderley.
She's very much older than you. Is she a relation?
Oh, no.
Have you known her long?
Well, she's not really a friend. She's an employer. She's training me to be a thing called a companion. And she pays me £90 a year.
I didn't know. I didn't know that you could buy companionship. It sounds rather a primitive idea, like an Eastern slave market.
I looked the word up in a dictionary. It said, a companion is a friend of the bosom.
Why'd you do it?
Well, £90 is a lot of money to me.
Haven't you any family?
No, they're dead.
Do you wish your steak now, sir, or later?
Later.
Very good, sir.
Thank you.
Do you enjoy being a friend of the bosom?
I enjoy some of it.
Don't you find it rather irksome?
Sometimes, I suppose, yes.
Tell me about it.
Tell you what?
Tell me what it's like. Tell me what you do.
I couldn't.
Why not?
I wouldn't know where to begin.
Try.
Please, I'd rather not.
Sounds to me as though you're ashamed of it.
Why do you say that?
Oh, I don't know. It's an impression, speculation, nothing more.
Well, you're right. It is rather shameful. Well, sometimes it's very shameful. Well, yesterday afternoon, it was awful.
What happened?
Well, Madame Blaise came with some dresses. And Mrs. Van Hopper bought 3 of them. They were terribly expensive. Anyway, afterwards, I went down to the lobby with her, with Madame Blaise, and she tried to give me 100 francs. As commission, she said. I was so ashamed I didn't know where to look. I was so embarrassed.
I think you've made a mistake.
You think I should have taken the money?
No, heavens no. I think you've made a mistake in coming here, in joining forces with Mrs. Van Hopper. You're not made for this sort of a job. You're too young, for one thing, and too vulnerable. Blaise and her commission, that's nothing. There'll be plenty of Madame Blaises in your life if you stick to it. You can either give in and become a sort of Blaise yourself, or stay as you are and be broken. Haven't you ever thought about the future? I mean, supposing Mrs. Van Hopper suddenly grows tired of her friend of the bosom, what then?
I'd get another job, I suppose. There are plenty of them. Well, the magazines are full of advertisements for ladies' companions.
Grilled sole for mademoiselle with pommes sautées and haricots verts. And the steak bleu for monsieur with green salad.
We have a bond in common, you and I.
What's that?
Do you want to see the sommelier, monsieur?
No, this will do me fine, thank you.
Thank you.
We're both alone in the world. Oh, I have a sister, but we don't see much of each other. And an aging grandmother, whom I pay duty visits to 3 times a year. But neither of them provide much in the way of companionship. I shall have to congratulate Mrs. Van Hopper. You're cheap at £90 a year.
Well, you're not really alone. Well, you've got a home and I haven't.
An empty house can be as lonely as a full hotel, and much less impersonal. So, Mrs. Van Hopper is ill in bed. Who's looking after her?
A nurse.
So you have a holiday?
Yes, I suppose I do.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. I haven't really thought. I might do some sketching.
Ah, so our friend of the bosom is also an artist.
I'm not a very good one.
It's too windy for sketching. Come for a drive.
Do you know this place? Have you been here before? It's getting late. Shouldn't we be going home? It's getting late.
Yes.
Have you been here before?
Yes, some years ago. I wanted to see if it had changed.
Has it?
No. No. It has not changed. How different from the sea at home. Do you know the West Country?
Not really.
It's unlike anywhere else on Earth, at this time of year especially. The sea is like slate, still cold after the long winter. From the terrace at Mandalay, you can hear the tide, the waves sweeping into the little bay. Daffodils are stirring in the evening breeze, thousands of them massed together like an army, shoulder to shoulder. Then there are primroses, too. Soon the bluebells. You should never pick wildflowers, never. You should always leave them where they belong. The only flower that looks better when it is picked is the rose. I have roses in the house at Mandalay for 8 months of every year. Roses and lilac, great branches of lilac. There's a little pathway down through the valley with huge clumps of azalea and rhododendron. The beauty of it is intoxicating. It leaves you dazed, breathless. We should be getting back. Mrs. Van Hopper will be getting anxious.
My gloves.
Do you like poetry?
Very much.
Then take it. Thank you for today.
What did you do with yourself yesterday?
I played tennis with a professional.
With me laid up like this, you've nothing to do. That's the problem. I just hope your tennis will improve. A poor player is a great bore. You still serve underhand?
Yes?
You must come up to the net more. You'll never make a good player until you do. And don't forget my taxol when you go shopping this morning. Don't just moon around the hotel all day. Travel is supposed to broaden the mind, so broaden it. There's a good girl.
Yes, Mrs. Van Hopper.
What a big sigh.
Was it? I was just thinking.
About what?
If only there could be an invention that bottled up memories like scent. And the memory never faded, never got stale. And then when you wanted it, the bottle could be uncorked and it'd be like living that moment all over again.
What particular memories in your young life would you like uncorked?
I'm not sure. I'd like to keep this moment and never forget it. Why are you doing all this?
Or what?
Well, you're just being kind, aren't you? Charitable. You feel sorry for me. I wish I was 36, dressed in black satin with a string of pearls.
Well, you wouldn't be here with me if you were. Oh, do stop biting your nails. They're ugly enough already.
I don't understand you at all.
Yes, well, that's really not so surprising. We've only known each other a week.
Yes, but you know everything there is to know about me. Well, that's not much, I suppose. But that's because I'm young and nothing much has happened to me. Except people dying, but you. I don't know any more about you than when we first met.
What did you know then?
I knew you lived at Manderley and that you'd lost your wife.
I'll tell you the one big difference between you and me. You want to preserve memories. I wish to ignore them. The past for me is bitter and ugly. I want to start my life all over again. But the trouble is, the past, however unpleasant it may have been, the past exerts its own most powerful fascination. Sometimes the scent is too strong for the bottle, and too strong for me. And then the devil in one tries to draw the cork. I did that on the first drive we took together when we climbed the hills and looked over the precipice. I was there some years ago with my wife. You asked me if it was still the same, if it had changed at all. No, it was just the same. But I was thankful to realize, oddly impersonal, she and I had left no record. It may have been because you were with me. You have blotted out the past for me, far more effectively than all the bright lights of Monte Carlo. But for you, I'd have left ages ago and gone on to Italy, perhaps, Greece, anywhere. You have saved me all those wanderings. That's why I seek your company. So damn your ideas of my kindness and feeling sorry for you. I want you with me. That's all. And if you don't believe me, you can leave now and go home. Go on, find your own way home. Go on!
Please take me back to the hotel.
Forget what I said to you just now. That's all finished and done with. Don't let's ever think of it again, all right? When shall I see my friend of the bosom again?
I'm not sure.
Or shall we say lunch tomorrow? If you can make it. 12:30. And promise me that you will never wear black satin.
Are you sure it'll be all right for you to get up tomorrow?
Of course it's all right. I haven't sneezed since Tuesday. Oh, did you tell the manager about the drafts?
Yes, Mrs. Van Hopper.
I've never known such drafts. It's like sitting in a Frigidaire. Is Nell Middlesex still here?
I don't think so.
What about Max de Winter?
Yes, I saw him in the restaurant today.
What a strange man he is. Attractive, but strange. Difficult to know, I should think. They say he was quite different before his wife died. What a dreadful thing that was. I never saw her, but I believe she was very lovely. Exquisitely turned out and brilliant in every way. They used to give tremendous parties at Mandalay. Oh, it was all very sudden and tragic, and I believe he adored her.
Mrs. Van Hopper's suite? Oh, would you hold on a minute, please? It's Mrs. Nicholson Drury.
Oh, fine. Let me talk to her. Helen? My dear, how are you? What? When? Is it serious? Oh, thank God for that. When are you going? Helen, listen. We're gonna come with you. No, I insist. Oh, to hell with Europe. Helen, listen, dear. Please listen. I'll make all the arrangements, and I'll call you tomorrow around 10, okay? Fine. Now, don't worry, Helen, and keep cheerful, and don't worry. Goodbye, dear. We're going home.
Home?
Helen's had a cable from New York. Her daughter's got appendicitis, and they've cabled her to go home, and we're going with her. I'm sick to death of Europe, and we can come back in the early fall. How do you like the idea of seeing New York?
I'm not sure.
What do you mean you're not sure? I can make you out sometimes. Don't you realize that girls in your position with no money can have the grandest fun in New York? Plenty of boys and excitement, and you won't be at my beck and call as much as you are here. Don't look so miserable, for heaven's sake. I thought you didn't care for Monty.
I've got used to it.
Well, you'll just have to get used to New York. Now go down to the reception desk right away and make that young clerk show some sign of efficiency. Tell him we're leaving Saturday and tell him to get things moving.
Hello. What is it? Is something the matter?
I've come to say goodbye. We're leaving tomorrow.
Come in. Shut the door. What on earth are you talking about?
It's true. We're leaving tomorrow, and there's so much to do. I was afraid I shouldn't see you again. Well, I had to see you. I had to thank you.
Sit down. Why didn't you tell me this before?
She only decided yesterday. It was all done in such a hurry. A friend of hers is going back to New York, and we're going with her. We're joining her in Paris and going through to Cherbourg.
And she wants to take you with her to New York.
Yes.
You want to go?
No, I shall hate it. I shall be miserable.
Then don't go.
Oh, I have to, you know
Why?
that. Why? Well, I work for a salary. I can't afford to leave her.
You want some breakfast and coffee?
No, thank you.
So, Mrs. Van Hopper has got tired of Monte Carlo and wants to go home. Well, so do I. She to America, I to Mandalay. Which would you prefer? You have your choice.
Oh, please don't joke about it.
I'm not joking. I never joke at breakfast time. New York with Mrs. Van Hopper or Mandalay with me?
I don't understand.
Choose.
You mean you want a secretary or something?
I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool.
You can't.
Can't I? Why not?
You can't mean it.
I do.
But I don't belong to your world.
What is my world?
Well, Manderley, you know what I mean.
Surely I'm the best judge of that. You think I'm asking you on the spur of the moment, don't you? Because you say you don't want to go to New York. You think I'm asking you to marry me for the same reason that I took you for that drive on the first day. To be kind, don't you?
Yes.
Yes, well, one of these days you'll realize that being kind isn't my strongest quality. You still haven't answered my question. Will you marry me? Obviously not. I'm sorry. It's a fine blow to my conceit. I thought you loved me.
But I do love you. I love you dreadfully. I've been crying all night because I thought I'd never see you again.
Bless you for that. One day, I'll remind you of this moment. And you won't believe me. Oh, what a shame. What a shame you have to grow up. Well, that's settled. Instead of being Mrs. Van Hopper's companion, you will be mine, and your duties will be very much the same. I, too, like to play bezique after dinner, and someone to pour out my tea. The only difference is that I don't take Taxol. I prefer Enos. And you must never let me run out of my particular brand of toothpaste. Oh, my poor darling. I'm sure this isn't your idea of a proposal. We should be in a conservatory. You in a white dress, with a flower in your hand, and a violin playing a waltz in the distance. And I should make love to you under a palm tree. Never mind. I'll take you to Venice for a honeymoon, and I'll hold hands with you in a gondola. But we won't stay long, because I want to show you Manderley. Who's going to tell Mrs. Van Hopper, you or me?
You tell her. She'd be so angry.
Does 42 seem very old to you?
Oh, no, I don't like young men.
Do you mind how soon you marry me?
How soon?
Well, the whole thing could be arranged in a few days, over a desk with a license. You don't want a trousseau, do you, or any of that nonsense?
You mean not in a church?
Not in a church.
Well, what about all your relations and all your friends?
I had that kind of wedding before.
We do whatever you like. Oh, won't it be fun?
well, well. Who'd have thought it? I suppose I have to hand it to you for a double-time worker. Still waters certainly run deep in your case. How did you manage it? Lucky for you I had influenza. Now I know how you spent your days. Tennis lessons, my eye. You might have told me.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And now he says he wants to marry you as soon as possible. Lucky again. And lucky you have no family to ask awkward questions. Lucky you. Oh, well, it's nothing to do with me anymore.
No.
I just wonder what his friends will think. Oh, well, I guess that's his problem. Ugh. I suppose you realize he's years older than you.
Well, he's only 42 and I'm old for my age.
You certainly are. Tell me, my dear, have you been doing anything you shouldn't?
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, well, never mind. I always said that English girls were dark horses for all their hockey-playing attitudes. Your beau didn't even ask me to the wedding.
Well, I don't think he wants anyone. Just the two of us, no guests. And you'll have sailed by then.
I just hope you know what you're doing. He's a difficult man, they say, and you'll have to adapt yourself to his ways. You'll have your work cut out as mistress of Manderley, and frankly, my dear, I can't see you doing it. You haven't got the experience. You don't know that milieu. Why, you can scarcely string two sentences together at my bridge teas. What are you going to say to all his friends? The Manderley parties were famous when she was alive.
What parties?
Hasn't he told you about them? I wonder why not. Naturally, I hope you'll be happy, and I grant you he's a very attractive creature. But I'm just so afraid you're making a very big mistake, and one that you'll regret bitterly. You know why he's marrying you, don't you? He wants company, that's all. Don't flatter yourself he's in love with you. That great empty place just gets on his nerves. He wants company. Simple, undemanding company. That's why he chose you, my dear.
What are you thinking?
About you. About Manderley. When I was a child, when both my parents were alive, we went down to the West Country for a holiday. We stopped at a village shop so that I could buy some sweets. It's one of those shops that sell everything, you know. Just by the counter, there were some postcard photographs. Well, not very good ones. The colours were all wrong. But one of them was so breathtaking. It's the most breathtaking place I'd ever seen. It was a country house, surrounded by trees with green lawns stretching down to the sea. Instead of buying sweets, I bought that postcard. Cost half my weekly pocket money. I asked the old shop lady what the picture was meant to be. Why? That's Manderley, she said. You're Manderley.
How are you feeling?
Nervous.
Don't be. We're almost there now. I expect you want your tea. Why don't you take off that mackintosh? It hasn't rained at all down here. And put that little fur thing straight. What lamb. I bustled you down here so fast. We should have stopped in London and got you some clothes.
Doesn't matter to me. It's long as you don't mind.
Most women think of nothing but clothes.
I hope I won't let you down too badly.
Let me down? How on earth did you let me down?
I'm so ignorant about things.
What things?
Dinner parties, entertaining, things like that. I won't know what to say, what to do, what spoons and forks to use, what to order, what to prepare. I won't know anything.
You just be yourself and everyone will adore you. You see those trees on the brow of that hill? That's Mandalay in there. Those are the woods. About the house. Mrs. Danvers will take care of all that.
Who's Mrs. Danvers?
The housekeeper. Marvelous woman. You can leave everything to her. She may be a little bit stiff at first, I dare say. It's just her manner. You mustn't take it to heart. Ah. Here we are. Blast the woman.
Who were all those people?
Don't worry, you won't have to say anything. I'll do it all.
Welcome to Mandalay, madam.
Here we are, Frith. It was raining when we left London. You don't seem to have had it down here. Is everyone well?
Yes, sir, thank you, sir. No, it's been a dry month on the whole. Glad to see you home, sir, and hope you've been keeping well. Oh, and Madam, too.
Yes, we're both well, thank you, Frith. A little tired after the journey and wanting our tea. I didn't expect all this business.
Mrs. Danvers' orders.
I might have guessed it. Come along, this won't take long. Thank you very much for coming to greet us like this. It's good to be back. Although my wife has never been to Mandalay before, she knows it and loves it already. From now on, it won't be just my Mandalay or your Mandalay, it will be her Mandalay as well. And so, with all of you, I say to her, welcome home. Oh, darling. This is Mrs. Danvers.
How do you do?
Welcome to Mandalay, Mrs. De Winter.
We have a bond in common, you and I.
What's that?
We're both alone in the world.
I don't understand you at all.
Yes, well, that's really not so surprising. We've only known each other a week.
Yes, but you know everything there is to know about me. I don't know any more about you than when we first met.
What did you know then?
I knew you lived at Mandalay and that you'd lost your wife.
I thought you loved me.
But I do love you. I love you dreadfully. I've been crying all night because I thought I'd never see you again.
I'll take you to Venice for our honeymoon, and I'll hold hands with you in a gondola. But we won't stay long, because I want to show you Mandalay.
Welcome to Mandalay, Mrs. De Winter.
Mrs. Danvers.
I'm sorry if I startled you, madam.
What time is it?
Almost 9:30.
9:30?
Frith said you hadn't been down for breakfast. He was worried in case you were feeling unwell.
No, I just overslept. Well, yesterday was so very tiring. Is my husband downstairs?
He's gone to the estate office with Mr. Crawley, madam. Shall I open the curtains?
Oh, please, Mrs. Danvers.
I've told Alice to look after you, madam, until your own maid arrives. I hope that's all right.
Oh, I don't have a maid, but I'm sure Alice will look after me splendidly.
Oh, I'm afraid that wouldn't do for very long. It's usual for ladies in your position to have a personal maid.
Oh, yes, well, perhaps you'd see to it for me, if you think it's necessary.
Whatever you wish. It's for you to say.
Mrs. Danvers, you must be patient with me. I'm new to this sort of life, and I so want to make a success of it. I want to make Mr. De Winter happy. Well, I know I can leave all the household arrangements to you. Mr. De Winter said so. You must run things as they've always been run. I shan't want to make any changes.
Very good, madam. I hope I shall do everything to your satisfaction.
Yes, I'm sure that you will. Have you been at Manderley for a long time?
Not so long as Frith, madam. I came here when the first Mrs. De Winter was a bride.
I see.
Shall I tell Frith to send up a breakfast tray?
Oh, no, it's my fault I overslept. I've caused enough trouble as it is.
It's for you to make your own time, madam. I'm here to carry out your orders.
Well, perhaps some coffee, then. A pot of coffee and some toast.
Very well, madam. Is there anything more I can do for you?
No, thank you, Mrs. Danvers. You've made this room most charming. I'm very grateful.
I only carried out Mr. De Winter's instructions. He said that you prefer to be on this side of the house. The rooms in the west wing are very old and much larger. The bedroom, for example, is twice as big as this.
Yes, that's very big.
It's a beautiful room, madam. The most beautiful room in the house. The windows look down across the lawn to the sea.
I suppose that's one of the rooms they show to the public.
Oh, no. The bedrooms are never shown to the public. Only the hall and the gallery and the rooms below. They used to live in the west wing when Mrs. De Winter was alive. That big room, the one that looks down to the sea, that was Mrs. De Winter's bedroom. I'll tell Alice to bring up a tray, madam.
Thank you, Mrs. Danvers. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, I couldn't find any matches.
The cigarettes are on the table beside you, madam.
Well, no, it wasn't that. I don't smoke. It just seemed rather chilly in here. I thought I'd put a match to the fire.
Well, this fire isn't usually lit until the afternoon. Mrs. De Winter always used the morning room. You'll find a good fire in there, madam. Of course, if you should like to have a fire in here as well, I'll give orders for it to be lit.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. I'll go to the morning room. Thank you, Frith.
Thank you, madam. Robbie, Hopkins has taken ill yet again. That means you'll have to take over his duties this afternoon. Don't expect any increase in wages. Madam, to your left. Through the double drawing room, and then turn left.
Thank you, Frith. Who is it? What do you want?
Mrs. De Winter?
I'm afraid you made a mistake. Well, Mrs. De Winter's been dead for over a year.
This is Mrs. Danvers, madam.
Oh, Mrs. Danvers, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize your voice. I didn't realize the call was for me.
This is the house telephone, madam.
Yes, so I see. I'm sorry, Mrs. Danvers. I'm sorry.
I only wondered whether you approved of the menus for today.
I'm sure I do. That is, I'm sure I approve of the menus.
You will find them on the blotter beside you. And I thought I'd better let you know that Mr. De Winter's sister and her husband will be lunching here today.
Lunching here? Well, Mr. De Winter didn't say.
I believe she telephoned earlier, madam, while you were asleep.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Mrs. Danvers. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Thank you, Robert. I can't believe it.
What?
You're looking so well.
Congratulations,
10 years younger, isn't it now? 10 years, hello, Frank.
Nice to see you.
I bet Jasper's glad you're back. Just look at him, poor fellow.
What's wrong with him?
He needs some exercise. He's getting much too fat. What on earth do you feed him on?
Oh, my dear Beatrice, they have exactly the same routine as your dogs. Don't pretend you know any more about animals than I do.
Dear old boy, you don't know what Jasper's been fed on. You've been away for a couple of months. And don't tell me Frith takes him to the lodge gates twice a day. This dog hasn't had a run for weeks, Frank.
Ah, here you are. Where have you been hiding? We're thinking of sending out a search party. This is Beatrice. Giles, Frank Crawley, our estate manager. Look out! You nearly trod on the dog.
How do you do?
How do you do? Well, quite different from what I expected. She doesn't answer to your description at all.
Pay no attention to Beatrice. She spends all her time with the horses. You don't hunt, do you?
I can barely ride.
Oh, you must take it up again. You can't possibly live in the country and not ride.
Leave the girl alone, Beatrice.
You must be tired after all your travelling, Mrs. De Winter.
Well, not now. I slept half the morning.
And what do you think of Manderley?
Well, I've scarcely seen anything of it. Oh, thank you, Frith. It's so big, I keep losing my way.
You must show me what's been done to the East Wing.
They've done a damn good job, thanks to Mrs. Danvers.
Amazing woman, eh?
I don't suppose you had a chance to look round the estate.
No, not yet.
We'll go for a walk later.
Oh, I'll come with you.
Oh, no, thank you, Beatrice. Your idea of a walk is my idea of a route march.
Nonsense. You must try and get him out of this dreadful laziness. He doesn't take any real exercise.
We're not all fresh air fiends.
Do you like walking?
Oh, yes, very much.
What about golf?
No, I don't play. But I love swimming.
Oh, there's not much bathing around here. The water's far too cold.
Oh, I don't mind that. Is the bathing safe in the bay?
Good Lord. 1 o'clock.
Oh, that's always fast.
It's kept perfect time for months.
You haven't been here for months.
Neither of you.
How did you enjoy Venice, Mrs. De Winter?
Oh, it was wonderful. Quite the most beautiful place I've ever been to.
Is it true that they've replaced all the gondolas with motorboats?
Who on earth told you that?
I think I read it in the paper.
I've never heard such rubbish.
Luncheon is served.
Oh, thank God for that. I'm infernally hungry. You still got the same cook?
Yes.
I'll always remember that souffle we had last summer. After you, my dear. I'll just wash my hands. My clock is darker.
The garden's lovely in the summer, a mass of blooms. I'm so glad you moved across to the East Wing.
Oh, it was Maxim's idea. He seems to prefer it.
They've done it up frightfully well. These are charming. Tell me, are you very much in love with him? Oh, don't answer. I can see what you feel. I'm an interfering old bore, aren't I? You mustn't mind me. I'm devoted to Maxim, though we always bicker like cat and dog when we meet. When he first wrote and told me all about you, I must admit it was a bit of a shock. Of course, we all imagined a social butterfly, very modern, you know, plastered with paint, well, the sort of girl you meet in Monte Carlo hotels. And when you came into the morning room, you could have knocked me down with a feather. Poor Maxim, he went through a ghastly time. Well, let's hope you've made him forget about it.
I hope so.
You know, you really ought to do something about your hair. Why don't you have it waved? It's so very lanky, isn't it? Must look awful under a hat. Why don't you sweep it back behind your ears? Oh, no, that's worse, too severe. What does Maxim say? Does he think it suits you?
Well, he's never mentioned it before.
Hasn't he? Well, he must have changed then. He used to be so particular. Say, how do you get on with Mrs. Danvers?
Well, she scares me a little. I've never seen anyone quite like her before.
I don't suppose you have. Did she seem friendly?
No, not very.
Well, that's hardly surprising. She's insanely jealous. Of course, I was afraid she would be.
Jealous of me and Maxim?
Oh, good Lord, no. No, she resents your being here. That's the trouble.
Why should she resent me?
Oh, I thought you knew. I thought Maxim would have told you, my dear. She simply adored Rebecca. I say we must be going. The Cartwrights are dining tonight. Do you know the Cartwrights? She's great fun.
Come on, let's go for that walk. Oh, Robert! Will you fetch a raincoat and some Wellingtons from the flower room for Mrs. De Winter? What did you think of Beatrice?
I liked her enormously. She was very nice to me.
What did you talk about?
All sorts of things. She said I was quite different from what she'd expected.
What the devil did she expect?
Oh, someone smarter, more sophisticated, I think. A social butterfly, she said.
Yes, well, Beatrice is one of the best people in the world, but she can be damnably unintelligent. Come on, Jasper! Not that way. Come on!
Why does he want to go that way?
I expect he's used to it. It leads to a bay where we used to keep a boat. Come on, Jasper! Do you remember I told you about a pathway that leads down to a valley? You'll see it in a minute. There, take a look at that. We call it the Happy Valley.
It's beautiful. The most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Jasper, come on. Come on. Jasper! Jasper!
Oh, look, there he is!
Jasper! Jasper, come back!
I'll go and get him.
No, don't!
Oh, we can't just leave him.
He'll find his own way home.
He might fall. Jasper! Jasper! Jasper, come here!
Okay. Dirty, innit? Digging for shell. No shell here. Been digging since forenoon.
I'm sorry. Jasper!
No shell here.
Come here! It's getting late. Come on!
I know that dog. He comes from the house.
Yes, I want him to come back with me now.
Oh, he's not yourn.
He's Mr. De Winter's dog. I want to take him back to the house. Come here, Jasper, please. What is it, boy? What do you want?
I saw he going yonder.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Mr. De Winter won't mind.
She don't go in there now.
No, not now.
She's gone in the sea, ain't she? She ain't coming back.
No, she won't come back.
You won't put me in the asylum, will you?
No, of course not.
I ain't done nothing. I never told no one. Nobody's no cause to putting me away.
Nobody's going to put you away.
Well, she said she would if I told what I saw.
I don't know what you mean.
Come on! It's going to rain!
Goodbye. Who is that man?
It's Ben. He's quite harmless, poor devil. His father used to be one of the keepers. They live near the home farm. Where did you get that string?
Oh, in that cottage.
Was the door open?
Yes.
Damn, it should be locked.
Wait for me. Can we look at the West Wing after tea?
Ask Mrs. Danvers, she'll show you.
Why can't you?
I have other things to do.
Maxim, what is it?
What's what?
Why are you behaving like this?
Like what?
You haven't spoken for the last 10 minutes, and when I asked to see the West Wing, you almost snapped my head off.
Look, there are certain things I do not wish to see. There are certain things I do not wish to do. You can do what you like, but don't expect me to stir up memories that could only destroy us both.
I'm sorry, Maxim, I'm sorry.
Oh, God, what a fool I was. We should have stayed in Italy.
Could I speak to you, sir?
Yes, Frith. What is it?
It's about Robert, sir. There's been a slight unpleasantness between him and Mrs. Danvers.
Oh, Lord.
It appears Mrs. Danvers has accused Robert of secreting a valuable ornament from the morning room. Mrs. Danvers went into the room after luncheon, noticed it was missing. It was there before lunch, she said. She accused Robert of either taking the ornament or breaking it and concealing the breakage. Robert has denied both these accusations most emphatically.
Well, supposing it was somebody else, one of the maids.
Well, no, sir. The only people who've been in the room since Mrs. Danvers are myself to serve the sherry and Robert to clear the glasses.
Well, you better ask Mrs. Danvers to come here and we'll get to the bottom of it. What ornament was it?
The china cupid, sir, that stands on the writing table.
Oh, Lord. That's one of our treasures, isn't it? It'll have to be found. Get hold of Mrs. Danvers at once.
Very good, sir.
Oh, what a nuisance. That Cupid's worth a hell of a lot. Oh, how I hate servants' rise. You ought to deal with this, you know. It's your job, not mine.
Darling, I meant to tell you. I'm sorry. I broke that Cupid.
You broke it?
I'm sorry. I meant to tell you. I forgot. I'm sorry.
But why didn't you say so just now when Frith was here?
I didn't like to. I was afraid he'd think me a fool.
He'll think you're much more of a fool now. You'll have to explain to him and Mrs. Danvers.
Oh, no, please, Maxim, you do it. I'll go upstairs.
Oh, don't be such an idiot. Anyone would think that you were afraid of them.
Well, I am afraid of him. At least not afraid.
False alarm, Mrs. Danvers. It's all a mistake. Mrs. De Winter broke the Cupid herself and forgot to say anything.
I'm so sorry. I didn't think that Robert would get into trouble.
Is it possible to repair the ornament, madam?
I'm afraid not. It smashed into little pieces.
What did you do with the pieces?
I put them in an envelope.
What did you do with the envelope?
I put it at the back of one of the drawers in the writing desk.
It looks as though Mrs. De Winter thought you would put her into prison, doesn't it, Mrs. Danvers? Would you find the pieces and send them up to London? If they're too far gone to be mended, it can't be helped. All right, Frith. Tell Robert to dry his tears.
Thank you.
I will apologize to Robert, of course, though at the time there seemed no other possible explanation. It didn't occur to me that Mrs. De Winter had broken the ornament herself. Perhaps if such a thing should happen again, Mrs. De Winter will tell me personally, and I will have the matter attended to.
Yes, of course.
It would save everybody a lot of unpleasantness.
Thank you, Mrs. Danvers.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm done. It doesn't matter.
Of course it matters. I should have been more careful. Well, Mrs. Danvers must be furious with me.
Well, what's she got to be furious about? It's not her piece of china.
No, but she takes such a pride in it all.
Oh, damn Mrs. Danvers. She's not God Almighty. You know, you're behaving like one of the maids, not mistress of the house.
That's how I feel.
Nonsense.
Well, it's true. I feel inadequate. I suppose that's why you married me.
What?
I said I suppose that's why you married me.
What is?
Because I'm dull and quiet and shy and inexperienced. Well, there wouldn't be any gossip about me.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Nothing. I don't mean anything.
What do you know of any gossip down here?
I don't. I just said it because of something to say.
Who's been talking to you?
Nobody. No one at all.
Then why did you say what you did?
I don't know. It just came into my head.
I wonder if I did a very selfish thing in marrying you.
How do you mean?
You should have married someone your own age.
That's ridiculous.
Is it?
I love you more than anything in the world. You know that.
Do you think you'll be happy here?
Of course I'll be happy. You know I'll be happy. I love Manderley.
Well, I hope so.
We'll both be happy. You know that.
Do I?
Don't you?
If you say so. I'll take your word for it. We'll both be happy. That's agreed. That's settled.
If only I hadn't broken that wretched Cupid.
Well done, the Cupid.
Was it very valuable?
Heaven knows, I suppose so. I've really forgotten.
Did you buy it?
It was given to us, I think. A wedding gift. Rebecca knew a lot about China.
Oh, Maxim. Will you do something for me?
What?
Let's go for a drive tomorrow. Like we did in Monte Carlo. Let's take a picnic and go for a drive and spend the whole day alone together.
I can't tomorrow, my darling.
Why not?
You know I can't, I told you.
Tell me what?
I've got to go up to London.
You're going to London?
Didn't I tell you? I'm sure I told you.
Why?
Oh, there's a muddle over some investments. I'll only be gone a couple of days. We'll have that picnic next week, all right?
Yes, all right.
Yep, fetch it, boy.
Frank, how you startled me.
Mrs. De Winter, what are you doing here?
Oh, looking for Jasper. I thought you were... Well, I don't know who I thought you were, the bogeyman or something.
Maxim told me this place had been left open. I came to see what damage had been done.
Where everything's so awfully damp.
Yes, yes, I know. It's just rotting away.
Are these Rebecca's things?
Yes.
What did she use the cottage for?
Oh, one thing and another. Part isn't on.
How jolly. What happened, Frank? What happened when she was drowned?
The boat capsized and sank. She was washed overboard. That's what we assume, anyway.
Nobody saw it happen?
Nobody was there. Nobody knew she'd gone out.
Not even...
Not even Maxim. No, she often went out alone like that. She'd come back any time of the night and sleep here.
Wasn't she nervous?
Nervous? No, she wasn't nervous of anything.
Maxim didn't mind her going off like that?
Oh, I don't know.
How long afterwards did they find her?
About 2 months. They found an Edgecombe about 40 miles up channel.
How did they know it was her?
Maxim went up to identify the body.
Oh, dreadful. Dreadful.
Yes. Yes, it was. Frith told me the bishop came to call on you this morning.
Oh, the bishop's lady. Maxim warned me about these social duties.
Duties?
Well, I can't pretend I enjoy it. Well, for one thing, I'm far too shy, and for another, I never know what to say. Well, I can almost hear people thinking how dull I am.
No, people think nothing of the sort, Mrs. De Winter.
Well, the bishop's wife wants to know if we're going to give a fancy dress ball at Manderley.
Oh.
Well, she came to the last one, she said, and enjoyed it very much. I didn't know Maxim gave fancy dress dances.
Oh, yes. The Manderley Ball was one of the events of the year. Yes, nearly everyone in the county came. A lot of people from London, too.
Must have taken a lot of organisation.
Oh, it was quite a big show.
I suppose Rebecca did most of it.
We all of us worked pretty hard.
I'd be no use if we had a dance. I'm no earthly use at organising things.
All you'd have to do would be to be yourself and look decorative.
That's very charming of you, Frank, but I don't think I'd do that very well either.
I think you'd do it excellently. You'd enjoy it, too.
I'd be far too nervous to enjoy anything.
Why? Why should you be nervous?
Well, I'm not used to it, that's why. I'm not used to the Manderley life. I'm not used to meeting people, all being graceful and witty, all giving splendid dinner parties, all being dressed in the height of fashion, all being mistress of the great house. I'm so unlike Rebecca, that's what makes me nervous.
Yes, you are unlike her. You're very unlike her. And if I may say so, Mrs. De Winter, I'm delighted that you are. And I'm delighted that you married Maxim.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you, Frank. Tell me truthfully, was Rebecca very beautiful?
I think she was the most beautiful creature I ever saw in my life.
You going back to the house?
No, not just yet. I must finish my survey first. Excuse me.
She's gone upstairs. She usually does. Stay here. I'll go and see.
Jasper!
Hello, you little tyke. Come on, boy. Good dog. Here, boy. Here. Oh. I do beg your pardon. I didn't realize anyone was here.
I've been out with the dog.
Yes, so I see. He was quite a pup when I saw him last. Got a bit fat, hasn't he? Have one?
I don't smoke.
Don't you really? How's old Max?
Well, he's very well, thank you. He's gone up to London.
Left you all alone? Too bad. Wasn't he afraid someone's going to come and carry you off? Ah, Danny, there you are. Your precautions were all in vain. The mistress of the house was hiding behind the door. Well, aren't you going to introduce me? After all, it is the usual thing to pay one's respects to the bride.
This is Mr. Favell, madam.
How do you do? Well, won't you stay to tea?
Now, isn't that a charming invitation? By heavens, Danny, I've a good mind to accept. But alas, I can't. What a shame. I suppose I'd better be going, hadn't I? Fetch my coat, Danny, do you mind? Dear old Manderley. Place never changes, does it? But then I suppose Danny sees to that. She's a wonderful woman, isn't she?
Yes, she's very efficient.
Oh, by the way, it'd be very sporting and grand of you if you didn't mention this little visit of mine. Old Max doesn't approve of me. I'm afraid I can't think why. And it might get poor old Danny into trouble.
All right.
Splendid. It's very sporting of you.
Your coat, Mr. Jack.
Thanks, Danny. Walk me to the car, will you? Oh. Bye-bye. Glad to have met you. Lucky man, old Max.
Is anything the matter, madam? You look pale. Are you feeling unwell?
No, I'm perfectly all right. I was standing on the lawn looking up to the house. I saw one of the shutters was open. I came to close it.
I will close it. Why did you tell me the shutter was open? I closed it before I left the room. You opened it yourself. You wanted to see the room, didn't you? Didn't you? It's such a lovely room, isn't it? The loveliest room you've ever seen. That was her bed. I keep the golden coverlet on it always. It was her favorite. Here's her nightdress inside the case. This was the nightdress she was wearing before she died. Feel it. Hold it. Feel how light and soft it is. I haven't washed it since she wore it for the last time. I put it out like this every night. Dressing gown and slippers, just as I put them out on the night that she never came back. I did everything for her, you know. Everything. Here. Come here. These are her brushes. I used to brush her hair for her every evening. Come on, Danny, hair drill, she'd say. And I'd stand behind her by the stool here and brush away for 20 minutes at a time. Well, Mr. De Winter used to brush it for her when they were first married. I've come into this room time and time again and seen him in his shirt sleeves with the 2 brushes in his hand. Harder, Max, harder, she'd say, and they'd both laugh. We'd all laugh. He was always laughing and gay then. The rocks battered her to bits, you know. That beautiful face, battered to bits. Both arms gone. I shall always blame myself for the accident. Always. I'd gone into Kerrith for the afternoon and stayed there late. Mrs. De Winter was in London, you see, and wasn't expected back. When I came in, they told me she'd already returned and gone down to the beach. I felt worried then. It was blowing from the southwest. She'd never have gone out if I'd been in. She always listened to me. All right, Danny, you old fusspot, she'd say. Mr. De Winter had been dining with Mr. Crawley down at his house. He told me not to worry. I expect she's spending the night at the cottage, he said. If I were you, I'd go to bed. I sat on my bed until 5:30, and then I couldn't wait there any longer. I went down to the beach. The boat had gone. I knew. I knew what had happened. Straight away, I knew. Listen. Listen to the sea. That's why Mr. De Winter doesn't use these rooms anymore. He's not used these rooms since the night she was drowned. He hardly slept at all. He used to sit in an armchair all night long. And in the daytime, Frith would hear him in the library pacing up and down. Up and down. I come to this room and dust it myself every day. It's such a beautiful room. You wouldn't think, would you, she'd been gone away so long? You think she just slipped out for a little while and would be back in the evening. I feel her everywhere. You do, too. Don't you? Sometimes, when I walk along a corridor, I fancy I hear her just behind me, that quick, light footstep. And in the minstrel's gallery above the hall, I fancy I see her looking down, calling to the dogs. It's almost as if I catch the sound of her dress sweeping the stairs as she comes down to dinner. Do you think she can see us now, talking to one another? Do you think the dead come back and watch the living?
I don't know. I don't know.
Sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I wonder if she comes back here to Manderley and watches you and Mr. De Winter together.
Mrs. Danvers, you must be patient with me. I'm new to this sort of life, and I so want to make a success of it. Maxim, what is it?
What's what?
Why are you behaving like this?
Like what?
You haven't spoken for the last 10 minutes, and when I asked to see the West Wing, you almost snapped my head off.
Look, there are certain things I do not wish to see. There are certain things I do not wish to do. You can do what you like, but don't expect me to stir up memories that can only destroy us both.
What happened, Frank? What happened when she was drowned?
The boat capsized and sank. She was washed overboard.
Was Rebecca very beautiful?
I think she was the most beautiful creature I ever saw in my life.
Do you think the dead come back and watch the living? Sometimes I wonder if she comes back here to Manderley and watches you and Mr. De Winter together.
Lazing about in the garden, we get invaded by a whole crowd of people.
Well, don't blame me.
That dreadful man Crone and his balding son, and her.
But they're not my friends, Maxim.
Well, they're certainly not mine. What did you talk to her about?
What?
What did you talk to her about?
Oh, nothing much, this and that, you know. She asked about the ball.
What ball?
Well, the Manderley ball. Are we going to revive the Manderley fancy dress ball, she said. Are we?
Oh, Lady Crone is a nuisance. She doesn't realize how much work it involves.
Well, it's not just Lady Crone. Mrs. Tucker was asking about it too, and the bishop's wife.
Really?
Well, they said how lovely it was, how much everyone enjoyed it. Well, Frank Crawley said it was one of the events of the year.
I didn't know that you were keen on such things.
Well, people seem to expect it, Maxim.
Expect what?
Some sort of a party, some sort of a...
Some sort of celebration for the bride?
Well, yes, I suppose so. Well, I get so embarrassed, you see, when people ask, I don't know what to say.
What will you go as? Alice in Wonderland? You look like it now, with your finger in your mouth.
Oh, Maxim, don't be so rude.
What's rude about that?
Well, I do so wish you wouldn't treat me like a silly little girl.
How do you want to be treated?
Well, like other men treat their wives.
Knock you about, you mean?
Oh, don't be absurd. Why must you make a joke of everything I say?
I'm not joking. I'm very serious. All right, if you want a party, you shall have a party. I'll talk to Frank Crawley about it.
I can help with the arrangements. I'd like to.
There's nothing much to do. The old guest list is in the office. Oh, you could lick the stamps.
What will you wear?
I never dress up. It's the rule of the house. The host doesn't wear fancy dress.
Oh, that's not fair.
The rule of the house.
Well, in that case, I shall keep my costume a secret. I shan't tell you anything about it. And it won't be Alice in Wonderland.
Everyone's tremendously excited about the ball. Was it your idea or Maxim's?
Well, both, really, I suppose.
Well, I think it's splendid. Just what we all need. Something to look forward to. Giles is coming as an Arab sheik. You mustn't say anything. It's supposed to be a surprise. Giles is so excited. He loves dressing up. We always have charades at Christmas. mustn't be frightened of Gran. She's nearly blind, bless her heart. And she's deaf, and she's not very bright these days either. Well, at her age, what can you expect?
Well, how old is she?
86, I think. Yes, that's right. 87 in October.
I remember Maxim talking about her when we first met.
About Gran?
Oh, about you both, actually. We were sitting in the hotel in Monte Carlo. He started talking about his family. I'm all alone in the world, he said. Apart from my sister and an ancient grandmother.
Rather alike, funnily enough, Maxim and Gran. If you can imagine Maxim deaf and old and dotty. Out of the way, you fool! I telephoned to the nurse that we were coming, so let's hope everything's all right. It is a pity Maxim couldn't come. Still, never mind. Good afternoon, Hilary.
Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon, madam.
Here we are, Gran. Arrived safe and sound.
Dear Bee, how sweet of you to come and see me. We're so dull here. Nothing for you to do.
I brought Maxim's wife to see you. She wanted to come before, but she and Maxim have been very busy.
Kiss her.
How has she been?
Rather mixed, madam. She has one good day and then a bad. You know how it is.
You nice thing. How sweet of you to come. I'm very pleased to meet you. You ought to have brought Maxim with you.
I'm afraid he's busy today.
You must bring him the next time. Sit down, my dear, here, near me, so I can see you. Bee, come the other side.
How are you enjoying Manderley, Mrs. De Winter?
Oh, very much, thank you.
It's a beautiful spot, isn't it?
Mrs. De Winter's very keen on art. I tell her there are heaps of spots in Manderley that would make very jolly pictures.
Rather. What a nice hobby. I had a friend who was a wonder with her pencil. We went to Provence together one Easter, and she did such pretty sketches.
How nice.
We're talking about sketching, Gran. You didn't know we had an artist in the family, did you?
Who's an artist? I don't know anyone.
Ask your new granddaughter.
What's Bee talking about? I didn't know you were an artist. We've never had an artist in the family.
Oh, Beatrice was joking.
She says I was joking.
I'm not really an artist. I like sketching as a hobby.
Ah, a hobby? Yes, I see.
You spent your honeymoon in Italy, didn't you? We were so pleased with the picture postcard Mr. De Winter sent.
Oh, did he send one? I don't remember.
Oh, yes, it was quite an excitement. We love anything like that.
What time is it, Bee?
Almost 4:30.
1:30. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Why doesn't Nora bring in the tea?
What? Hungry again after our big lunch? We keep a scrapbook, you know, and we paste anything to do with the family inside it. Anything pleasant, that is, like your postcard.
How nice.
Why doesn't Nora bring in the tea?
It's only just turned past.
I wouldn't have your job for 1,000 a day.
Oh, I'm used to it, Mrs. Lacey. We've got a treat, you know, today. Watercress sandwiches.
Is it watercress day?
Yes, watercress today. She loves watercress.
Why doesn't Nora bring in the tea?
She will in a minute, Gran.
Did you have fine weather in Italy?
Oh, yes, it was very warm.
They had lovely weather in Italy, she says, for their honeymoon. Maxim got quite sunburned.
Why isn't Maxim here today? Is he still in Italy?
We told you, darling, he's busy. He's at home.
When did he go to Italy?
On his honeymoon, Gran, in April. We wrote and told you all about it. He's at home now at Manderley.
Are you staying at Manderley too?
Oh, Gran, darling, you know perfectly well she lives there now. She and Maxim are married.
I don't understand. Who are you, my dear? I've never seen you before. I don't know your face. Who is this child?
Come along, dear.
Why didn't Maxim bring Rebecca? I'm so fond of Rebecca.
Her mind wanders.
Where
you see,
is
she
dear
doesn't know what
Rebecca?
she's saying.
I want Rebecca. What have you done with Rebecca? Where is Rebecca? Where is Rebecca? Where is Rebecca? Where is Rebecca?
Come in.
I hope I'm not disturbing you, madam.
What is it, Mrs. Danvers?
Robert found these drawings on the library floor. I wondered whether you meant to throw them away.
Yes, that's right. They're only rough sketches. I don't want them.
Very good, madam. May I ask, are they costume sketches for the ball?
Yes, that's right.
So you've not yet decided what you will wear?
Not yet, Mrs. Danvers, no.
Hasn't Mr. De Winter suggested a costume for you?
No, I want to surprise him.
I wonder you don't copy one of the pictures in the gallery.
Yes, I might think about that.
All the pictures in the gallery would make good costumes, especially the one of Miss Caroline De Winter, the young lady in white. I wonder Mr. De Winter doesn't make it a period ball, with everyone dressed more or less the same to be in keeping. I never think it looks right to see a clown dancing with a lady in powder and patches.
Well, some people enjoy the variety. Well, they think it makes it all the more amusing.
Well, I don't like it myself. Had you thought who would make the dress?
No, I hadn't. Well, do you know of anyone?
No one down here can do that sort of thing well. But Voce in Bond Street have a good reputation.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Danvers. I'll remember that.
Thank you, madam.
Poor old Beatrice always looks wrong on these occasions. Last time she came as Madame de Pompadour, and she tripped on her way into dinner, and her wig flew off. Damn thing, she said. She clutched it to her the rest of the evening. Lady Crone thought that she'd brought her Persian cat. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Madam.
Oh, this is Mrs. De Winter speaking. I wanted to make sure that you understood all my instructions about the dress. Oh, you did? Good. And the wig? Oh, good. Thank you very much. And do remember that I want it on Wednesday the 12th, without fail.
Mr. Crawley, madam.
Oh, yes, show him in.
Oh, I hope I'm not too early.
No, I've just finished, all addressed and checked against the guest list.
Very efficient, thank you. I'll get these in the post this evening.
Do you think they'll all say yes?
Of course they will. Nobody wants to miss the Manderley ball.
Oh, dear, all those people. It's very daunting.
You'll enjoy it, I'm sure. You won't have to do anything alarming. You'll just receive the guests, and there's nothing in that.
You make it sound very easy.
So it is.
Well, all these strangers, what on earth should I say to them?
They're not all strangers, Mrs. De Winter. Perhaps you'll give me a dance.
You shall have as many dances as you like. I shan't dance with anyone but you and Maxim.
Oh, but that wouldn't look right at all. People would be very offended. You must dance with those who ask you.
Dear Frank, you are so nice. Well, I so hope it'll be a success.
I'm sure it'll be a great success. You've got nothing to worry about.
Oh, but I have. I've got so much to live up to.
How do you mean?
Well, everyone tells me how brilliantly Rebecca organised these parties, how glittering they were, how perfect in every way.
Yes, but that's all in the past now.
Is it?
Yes, of course it is.
Well, Maxim's bound to think of it, though. He's bound to think how things used to be and how they are now.
We none of us want to bring back the past, Mrs. De Winter. Maxim least of all. And it's up to you, you know, to lead us away from it, not take us back there again.
Yes. Yes, you're quite right. I'm just being selfish.
Selfish?
Oh, a martyr to my own inferiority complex.
That's not being selfish. That's being foolish.
Well, thank you.
For what?
You've made me feel much happier. And I've got you for a friend, whatever happens, haven't I, Frank?
You have indeed.
Will you stay to tea?
No, thank you, but I'd better get these in the post. Bye.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why not put those chairs in the library? There's plenty of room.
Well, Mrs. Danvers said to take them round the back, ma'am, to be out of the way.
Oh, yes, of course. How silly of me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't forget the boxes, Robert. Costumes.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Quite beautiful. Oh, this is like old times. The flowers are exquisite, my dear. Did you do them?
Well, no, Mrs. Danvers.
They're perfect.
I see you've got Mitchell's to do the catering.
As usual.
Damn good grub last time. First class.
How many people are staying?
Only you.
Oh, thank God for that. Do you remember the year before last? We were all packed in like sardines. It was frightful. There were even people sleeping in the bathroom.
Will you have some tea?
Oh, you know me. Never say no.
Oh, there'll be plenty to eat later. Come on, it's time to get ready.
Nonsense, Bee. It's only 5 o'clock.
But it'll take you at least 2 hours to paint your face.
Paint your face. Giles, what are you coming as?
Mustn't ask. Top secret.
Isn't this fun? I'm so glad you decided to do it again, Maxim.
You have her to thank for it.
Oh, not true. People kept asking about the Manderley ball.
Oh, don't pretend you're not excited. We can all see that you are.
Well, yes.
Of course you are. So am I. So's Bee. So's Maxim, though he'd never admit it. We're all excited. And quite right, too.
Handsome, madam, really handsome.
Oh, what about under the left shoulder? Will that strap show?
No, madam, nothing shows.
Clarice, what will Mr. De Winter say? Who's there? You can't come in.
It's me, dear. Don't get alarmed. How far have you got? I want to look at you.
Oh, please don't come in, Beatrice. Go on down. Don't wait for me. I'll come down when I'm ready.
Well, don't be too long. We're all so intrigued.
Clarice. Clarice. Unlock the door. I'm going down. Run ahead and see if they're all there.
You look marvelous.
It's the same as last year.
Salam!
Oh, my God, that's excellent. Who's the lady? That's she for the family.
Oh, you all come down
Go down, madam.
Mr. De Winter and Major and Mrs. Lacey. Mr. Crawley's just arrived. They're all standing in the hall.
I can't think what she can be doing. She's been in the bedroom for the last 2 hours. What time is it, Franny?
Almost past.
Make the drummer announce me. Make him beat the drum, you know how they do. And then call out Miss Caroline De Winter.
Right.
I want to surprise them.
Okay.
Miss Caroline De Winter.
How do you do, Mr. De Winter?
What in the hell do you think you're doing?
It's the picture, Maxim. I copied the picture, that one. What is it? What have I done?
Go and change. It doesn't matter what you put on. Quickly, before anybody gets here. Quickly! Didn't you hear what I said? Go and change!
Say the dress didn't fit. Say the shop sent the wrong dress. Oh, say anything.
Oh, madam, your lovely dress. Your lovely white dress.
It's all right, Clarice. It's not your fault.
What'll you wear instead, madam?
I don't know.
Looked so beautiful. Just like the picture.
There's nothing to cry about. Now, please leave me alone. I'll be all right.
Oh, madam.
Please leave me. I'd rather be alone. Who is it?
My dear. Dear. You're all right. You look very pale. I'll get you a glass of water. Here you are. Now drink this. I know it must have been a terrible mistake. You couldn't possibly have known.
Known what?
Well, the dress, the picture you copied. Rebecca did the same at the last ball. Identical. The same dress, the same picture. As you stood there on the stairs, I thought for one ghastly moment it was...
I ought to have known. I ought to have guessed.
Well, guessed what? How could you? It's not your fault, my dear. It's just that it was such a shock, you see. And Maxim, he...
What? Maxim what?
Well, he thinks it was deliberate.
Oh, God.
Now, don't worry. Don't worry. There's nothing to worry about. He'll understand when he's calmed down. Now, the first lot of people have arrived. They're just having drinks, so we'll have to find something for you to wear. Now, let's see what you can put on. Oh, this blue. Yes, that looks charming. Put this on. Nobody'll mind. Quickly now, and I'll help you.
I'm not coming down.
Oh, but you must.
I can't face them.
Oh, well, nobody'll know. Nobody'll care. We'll say the shop sent the wrong dress.
It's not the dress, it's what I did, what happened.
I'll get Maxim alone for a minute, and I'll explain the whole thing to you.
No, you mustn't.
Well, try to make the effort, please. I can't just say you've suddenly got a headache.
Why not? What does it matter? They're not my friends. They don't even know me.
Well, think of Maxim. You must come down for his sake.
I can't.
Who is it?
It's me.
What do you want?
Maxim sent me up to find out what's going on.
She says she won't come down. What on earth are we going to say?
Oh, frightful mix-up.
You'd better tell him that she's feeling rather faint and she'll try and come down later. And tell him not to wait dinner.
Right, Joanna. Anything I can do to help?
No, I'll be down directly, Charles. Would you like a brandy? It's only Dutch courage, I know, but it sometimes works wonders.
No, thank you. I don't want anything.
I'll have to go down, I'm afraid. Are you sure it's all right for me to leave you?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, don't thank me. I only wish I could do something.
Please don't despise me.
Despise you? What an extraordinary thing to say.
Well, you wouldn't just give up, would you? You wouldn't hide away from everybody. If only I was more like you, Beatrice.
I had a cousin who won all sorts of medals in the Great War. And when somebody praised him for being so brave, he said, "Oh, I'm not brave, I enjoy fighting. It's the chaps who are scared to death who are the really brave ones." Oh, my God, what a sight I look. I think this damn veil's crooked. Oh, well, can't be helped.
There's one gone here, Bill.
Give us one of them spare ones. There. Looks good, don't it? Real pretty.
Would you like some champagne?
Oh, no, Frank, really, I don't think I would.
I wish you would. I think you need it.
It's a jolly nice dress you're wearing. The rest of us look pretty damn silly.
I know your wife's truck never turned up on time. Damn shame, what? You should sue the shop for fraud. Same thing happened to me wife's sister once.
Yes, it was most unfortunate.
Tell you what you should do. You say you've come with a forget-me-not. Jolly little flowers, forget-me-not, eh? Blue dress, blue flowers, forget-me-not. Good idea.
Little like me.
Yes, well, come and watch the fun.
Now, don't forget, you're dining with us on the 14th.
Oh, are we?
Yes, 8:30 black tie, and we're so looking forward to seeing you.
Oh, what fun. Thank you.
Pleasure. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Oh, heavens, I'm deadbeat. But what a tremendous success.
Was it?
Oh, tremendous. My dear, you look worn out. Hadn't you better go to bed? Where are the men?
Out there on the drive.
I shall have some coffee, I think, and some eggs and bacon. What about you?
No, Beatrice, I don't think I will, thank you.
You looked very charming in your blue. Everyone said so. And nobody had an inkling about the other thing, so you mustn't worry.
No.
I should have a long lie in bed tomorrow. Have your breakfast in bed. Don't attempt to get up.
Yes, perhaps.
I'll tell Maxim you've gone up, shall I?
Oh, yes, please, Beatrice.
All right. Sleep well. Mm.
You've done what you wanted, haven't you? Are you pleased? Are you happy?
Why did you ever come here? Nobody wanted you at Manderley.
You seem to forget that I love Mr. De Winter.
If you loved him, you'd never have married him. I thought I hated you, but I don't now. Seems to have spent itself, all the feeling I had.
Why should you hate me? What have I ever done that you should hate me?
You tried to take Mrs. De Winter's place.
That's not true. I gave no orders. I had nothing changed. I left everything to you. Well, it was no crime for us to marry. Haven't we as much right to be happy as anyone else?
Mr. De Winter's not happy. Any fool can see that. Look at his eyes. He's been in hell ever since she died.
We were happy when we were in France together.
No man denies himself on his honeymoon.
How dare you speak like that to me? How dare you? You made me wear that dress last night, didn't you? I should never have thought of it but for you. You did it because you wanted to hurt Mr. De Winter. You wanted to make him suffer. Well, hasn't he suffered enough?
What do I care for his suffering? He's never cared about mine. How do you think I've liked it? Watching you sit in her place, touch the things that were hers. What do you think it's meant to me to hear Frith and Robert and the rest of the servants talking about you as Mrs. De Winter? Mrs. De Winter is dead! My lady is dead! But he knows she sees him. He knows she comes by night and watches him. And she doesn't come kindly. Not she. Not my lady. She was never one to stand mute and still and be wronged. I had care of her as a child. Did you know that?
What's the use, Mrs. Danvers? I don't want to hear.
No one ever got the better of her. Never. Not even then. Not even when she was a child. She did what she liked. She lived as she liked. Oh, she had courage, too. All the courage and spirit of a boy. I remember her at 16 getting up on one of her father's horses, a big brute of an animal that the groom said was too hot for her to handle. She stuck him all right. I can see her now with her hair flying out behind her, slashing at him, drawing blood, digging the spurs into his sides. And when she got off his back, he was trembling all over, full of froth and blood. That'll teach him, won't it, Danny, she said, and walked off to wash her hands as cool as you please. And that's how she went at life when she grew up. I was with her. I saw her. She cared for nothing and for no one. And then when she was finally beaten, it wasn't a man and it wasn't a woman. Only the sea was strong enough for my lady. Only the sea.
Mrs. Danvers. Well, Mrs. Danvers, you're not well. Well, you ought to be in bed. Or go to your room.
Oh, leave me alone, can't you? What's it to you if I show my grief? I'm not ashamed of it. You talk of making him happy. You think you can take her place? You take my lady's place? Well, even the servants laughed when you came to Manderley, even the scullery maids. I wonder what Mr. De Winter thought when he got you back here after that happy honeymoon. I wonder what he thought when he saw you sitting at the dining room table for the first time, sitting in her place. I wonder what
That's
he thought.
enough, Mrs. Danvers. You better go to your room.
Go to my room. Go to my room. The mistress of the house thinks I'd better go to my room. You can't give orders in this house. You'll never get the better of her. She's still mistress here, even if she is dead. She's the real Mrs. De Winter, not you. It's you that's the shadow and the ghost. It's you that's forgotten and not wanted and pushed aside. Why don't you leave Manderley to her? Why don't you go? Why don't you go? I mean, none of us want you here. He doesn't want you. He never did. He can't forget her. He wants to be alone in the house again with her. It's you who ought to be dead, not Mrs. De Winter. Look down there. Why don't you jump? It's a quick, kind way, not like drowning. Why don't you jump? Don't be afraid. I won't push you. Jump of your own accord. You're not happy. Mr. De Winter doesn't love you. Jump now and be done with it. It's a quick, kind way. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Jump!
What's that? What's happened?
It's the rocket. There must be a ship gone ashore in the bay. You'd better go down. Be careful with your hands when you to shut the window. It's a good thing there's no sea running. There wouldn't have been much chance for them then. But on a day like this, there's no danger. When you see Mr. De Winter, madam, will you tell him it'll be quite all right if he wants to bring the men back from the ship? There'll be a hot meal ready for them at any time.
Yes, Mrs. Danvers.
Have you finished with the tray, madam?
Oh, yes, thank you, Robert.
You've not eaten all day, madam. Is there anything I can get you?
No, thank you. Well, have you seen Mr. De Winter at all?
Only very briefly, madam. He came back for some cigarettes and then went straight down to the beach again. Captain Searle is here waiting to see him.
Captain Searle?
The harbour master of Kerrith.
Oh, ask him to come in. Perhaps there's something I can do.
Very good, madam. Captain Searle, madam.
Mrs. De Winter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Captain. What a dreadful thing to have happened.
Well, it could have been much worse. The men are all safe, thank God, and there are no serious injuries.
Well, what about the ship?
Badly holed. She'll not see Hamburg again.
Do sit down, won't you?
Thank you, Mrs. Winter. Hello, dogs.
I'm so sorry my husband's not here. Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know where he is. He's been in and out all day.
So I gather from Mr. Crawley.
Is there anything I can do?
Well, I'm not too sure. I don't want to cause you any distress, Mrs. De Winter. That's the last thing I'd want to do.
Distress? Well, what do you mean distress? What's happened?
I think I'd better wait until your husband gets back.
No, please tell me, please.
Yes, perhaps I should. We sent a diver down to inspect the damage. While he was down there, he came across the hull of a small sailing boat, lying on its side, quite intact, not broken up at all. He's a local man, of course, and he recognized the boat at once. It was the boat belonging to the late Mrs. De Winter.
I see. I see. Well, Captain Searle, must we tell my husband? Well, can't the boat be left there as it is? It's not doing any harm, is it?
There's a bit more to it than that, I'm afraid. The man had a look through one of the port lights. He got the fright of his life, Mrs. De Winter. There was a body on the cabin floor.
Oh, my God.
It was all dissolved, of course. There was no flesh on it, but it was a body, all right. He saw the head and the limbs. He came up to the surface and he reported it direct to me. So you see, I have no choice, Mrs. De Winter. I must tell your husband.
But I thought she was supposed to have been sailing alone.
Yes.
So there must have been someone with her then, after all.
That's what it looks like, yes.
Well, who could it have been?
I've no idea.
Well, surely somebody would have come forward. A relative, somebody.
Yes. It's all very strange.
Well, now what'll happen?
It'll have to be reported, I'm afraid. The press will be onto it, of course, though I can't see how we can avoid that. I'm very sorry.
If only we didn't have to tell Maxim. If only we could keep the whole thing from him.
I would if I could, Mrs. De Winter. But it's quite impossible. There's nothing I can do.
Captain Searle, they told me that you were here.
Mr. De Winter, I'm afraid
I
that...
wonder if you'd mind waiting in my study. I'd like a few words with my wife. I know what's happened. Frank Crawley told me.
Yes, of course. Mrs. De Winter.
I'm sorry. I'm so terribly, terribly sorry. Please say you've forgiven me.
Forgiven you? What is there to forgive?
Last night, the dress, you thought I did it on purpose.
That. I'd forgotten. There's nothing to forgive. Oh, my darling, if only this thing had never happened.
It doesn't matter what's happened. We're together, that's all that matters. Oh, Maxim, I love you so much.
No, you're wrong. It does matter. You don't understand. We're not meant for happiness, you and I.
How can you say that?
It's true. Rebecca has won.
No. No, please.
Her shadow is always between us. She knew she would win in the end.
No, please, Maxim, you mustn't say such things.
Searle told you about the boat.
Yes.
And he told you what they found in the cabin.
Yes.
Don't you know what that means?
It means she wasn't alone. It means there was somebody else in the boat with her.
No. Rebecca was alone.
Well, she can't have been. Captain Searle said...
It's Rebecca's body lying on the cabin floor.
No, Maxim, no.
The woman they buried isn't Rebecca. It belongs to another woman. Unclaimed, belonging nowhere. There never was an accident. Rebecca wasn't drowned at all. I killed her. Now, can you look into my eyes and tell me that you love me? All right, if you want a party, you shall have a party. I'll talk to Frank Crawley about it.
What will you wear?
I never dress up. It's the rule of the house. The host doesn't wear fancy dress.
Oh, that's not fair.
The rule of the house.
Well, in that case, I shall keep my costume a secret.
Miss Caroline de Winter.
How do you do, Mr. De Winter?
Go and change. It doesn't matter what you put on. Quickly, before anybody gets here. Quickly!
Well, the dress, the picture you copied. Rebecca did the same at the last ball.
You made me wear that dress last night, didn't you? I should never have thought of it but for you.
There must be a ship gone ashore in the bay.
We sent a diver down to inspect the damage. While he was down there, he came across the hull of a small sailing boat. There was a body on the cabin floor.
Oh, my God.
It's Rebecca's body lying on the cabin floor.
No, Maxine, no.
I killed her.
What do they do now?
They'll identify her body. There's everything they need in that cabin. The shoes, the clothes she had, the rings on her fingers. They'll identify her body. And then they'll remember the other one, the woman they buried last year.
What are you going to do? What are you going to say? Does anyone know what happened?
No one but you and me.
You sure Frank doesn't know?
How could he? There was no one there but myself. It was dark.
I love you. I love you. Will you believe me now?
Yes, I believe you. I love you so much. So much. I thought I'd go mad. There was no one I could tell.
You could have told me.
You seemed so bored, so unhappy.
I thought you still loved Rebecca.
Loved her. I hated her. Hated her. What can I tell you? How can I explain Rebecca? For her, true happiness was only to be found in the unhappiness of others, in possession, in destruction. We went on holiday in Monte Carlo when she made her bargain with me. We went for a drive up into the hills. Do you remember that drive? Well, we stood there together on the edge of that precipice, looking out at the sunset. I remember her. Her black hair was blowing in the wind. She told me everything about herself. She was smiling as she told me. I'll be discreet, she said. I'll take a flat in London. Nobody will ever know. And I'll make your precious Manderley the most beautiful house in all the country. We stood there on the edge of that precipice within 6 feet of death. I almost killed her then. Instead, I agreed. Why? Because I suppose I was afraid of scandal, afraid of all those whispered rumors. I thought about Manderley too much. I put Manderley first before anything else. And it does not prosper, that sort of love. She kept her side of the bargain. It was her taste, her skill that made Manderley the thing it is today. The china, the tapestries, the gardens, the shrubs, even Happy Valley. None of that existed when my father was alive. That's all Rebecca. One day she'd be here, entertaining, all graciousness and smiles, and the next back to London. And so we lived. Month after month, year after year. Then she began to go careless. She began to ask her friends down here. There was one man, well, one man in particular, a man called Favell.
Jack Favell?
Yes. Do you know him?
I met him. He came here when you were away to see Mrs. Danvers.
But why didn't you tell me?
He asked me not to.
That's no reason.
I thought it'd remind you of Rebecca.
As if I needed reminding. Well, he spent a lot of time down here when she was alive. She'd tell the servants that she was going to sail and wouldn't be back until the morning, and then she'd spend the night with him in that cottage by the bay. Then one day, one morning, I lost my temper. I told her that if I found him here again, I'd kill him. She didn't even reply. She just ignored me. Things drifted on. Nothing much happened. And then I'd been having dinner with Frank Crawley. Rebecca had gone to London. I left Frank's at about 10:30. Her gloves and scarf were on a chair in the hall. She'd come back. I couldn't imagine why. I went upstairs. She wasn't there. I guessed that she'd gone down to the cottage. I presumed Jack Favell had gone with her. Well, I felt I couldn't stand it any longer. I took the gun. Just to frighten. I took the gun and slipped out into the garden. The servants didn't know that I'd come back at all. I made my way down through the woods to the cottage. Rebecca was alone. I started shouting at her. I told her that I'd had enough, that it was the end. She got up. She got up and stretched herself, her arms above her head. "You're right, Max," she said. She was smiling. This time I turned over a new leaf, found a new interest in life. A child, perhaps. A son. An heir to your precious Manderley. And nobody in the world could ever prove that it wasn't yours. I'll be the perfect mother, just as I've been the perfect wife. She turned round to face me, laughing. I fired at her heart. She didn't fall at once. She just stood there, looking at me, that slow smile on her face. Her eyes wide open. I carried her down to the boat. It must have been almost midnight. There was no moon. The wind was squally from the west. I carried her down to the cabin and left her there. I managed to get the boat out into the bay beyond the beacon. The wind blew down from the headland like a funnel. I opened the seacock's, water began to come in. I had a spike with me, and I drove it into the bottom boards. One plank split right across. I took out the spike and drove it into another plank. Water came up over my feet. I left Rebecca lying there. I closed the cabin door. I climbed into the dinghy, pulled away, and watched. The boat was sinking by the head. The jib was shaking and cracking like a whip. Suddenly, she heeled right over, and the mast split right down the center. The boat wasn't there anymore. I came back to the house. As I was undressing, Mrs. Danvers knocked at the door. I think she was worried about Rebecca. I told her to go back to bed. That's all.
They can't prove anything against you.
Not yet.
No one knows but us.
They may find out.
How?
By asking questions.
What questions? Who's going to ask questions?
The coroner, for a start. There's bound to be an inquest.
And on the 23rd of that month, you went to Edgecombe to examine the body of a woman, which you were able to identify without hesitation as being that of your late wife, Rebecca De Winter. How do you explain that?
I must have been mistaken. The body was already far gone in decomposition. It could have been almost anyone, man or woman. I suppose I went there expecting it to be my wife's body. I was mistaken.
Yes. Yes, that seems to be quite understandable. Thank you, Mr. De Winter.
Was this the winner?
Mr. Tad, it is suggested that at the moment Mrs. De Winter went below, for a coat perhaps, a violent gust of wind came down from the headland into the cove. Now, would that, in your expert opinion, have been sufficient to capsize the boat?
No, sir, I don't think it would.
Well, I'm afraid that is what must have happened. I don't think Mr. De Winter or any of us suggests that your workmanship was to blame for the accident at all. You fitted the boat out at the start of the season. You reported her sound and seaworthy. That's all I want to know.
Excuse me, sir, but there's more to it than that. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to make a further statement.
Oh, very well, go on.
It's like this, sir. After the accident, some people said that I'd let Mrs. De Winter start the season in a leaky, rotten boat. I lost 2 or 3 orders because of it. So when they found the boat and brought it to the surface, I asked Captain Searle if I could examine her. I wanted to satisfy myself that I'd done a good job of work.
And were you satisfied?
Indeed I was, sir. There was nothing wrong with that boat as regards the work I did to her. She'd sunk on sandy bottom, sir. I asked the diver about that and he told me so. She'd not touched the ridge at all. She was lying on sand, and there wasn't the mark of a rock on her.
Is that all you want to say?
No, sir, it's not. What I want to know is this. Who drove the O's in her planking? Rocks didn't do it. The nearest rock was 5 feet away. Besides, they weren't the sort of marks made by a rock. They was O's, done with a spike.
Why, what do you mean? Where were these holes?
There was 3 of them altogether, sir. One right forward, by a chain locker on the starboard side, below the waterline. The other 2 close together amidships, underneath her floorboards in the bottom. And the sea cocks had been turned on as well.
I don't understand that. Wouldn't it be very dangerous to leave the sea cocks open?
Well, yes, sir, it would. With those O's in her planking and the sea cocks not closed, it wouldn't take long for a small boat like her to sink. Not much more than 10 minutes.
What are you suggesting, Mr. Tabb?
It's my opinion, sir, that the boat never capsized at all. I think she was deliberately scuttled.
Now, Mr. De Winter, do you know anything of these holes driven in the planking?
Nothing whatsoever.
I must remind you, you're still under oath. Do you doubt Mr. Tabb's statement?
Not at all. He's a boat builder. He knows what he's talking about.
So you would agree with Mr. Tabb that a boat with such holes driven in the planking and the sea cocks open could not float for more than 10 or 15 minutes?
Yes.
Therefore, we must put aside the idea that the boat was maliciously tampered with before Mrs. De Winter went for her evening sail. Had that been the case, the boat would have sunk at her moorings.
No doubt.
Therefore, we must assume that whoever did take the boat out that night must have driven those holes in the planking and opened the sea cocks.
Yes, I suppose so.
And yet we've already heard that the door of the cabin was shut, the portholes were closed, and your wife's body was lying on the floor of the cabin.
Yes.
Now, added to this is the extraordinary information that holes had been driven in the planking and the sea cocks were open. Now, does not that strike you, Mr. De Winter, as being very strange?
It does, certainly.
You have no suggestions to make?
No, none at all.
Well, Mr. De Winter, painful as it may be, I'm afraid it is my duty to ask you a very personal question.
Yes?
Were relations between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy?
Would someone take my wife outside? She's going to faint.
I'll take you to the car.
No, I'd rather stay, Frank. I want to wait for Maxim.
He might be rather a long time.
Why should he be? What are they going to do?
That man Tabb has altered everything. They'll have to approach it from a different angle.
What angle? What do you mean?
You heard what he said. They won't believe in an accident anymore.
That's ridiculous. How can he tell what happened? What are they trying to prove?
Oh, I don't know.
That man was there, that man that came to see Mrs. Danvers.
Jack Favell, yes, I saw him.
Well, they were sitting there together.
Yes, I know.
Well, why was he there, Frank? What right had he to go to the inquest?
He was her cousin.
Well, I don't trust them. They might do something. They might make mischief.
Try not to worry. Come along. I'm sure everything will be all right.
Do please try to answer the question without unnecessary comment, Mr. De Winter. I'm not conducting this inquiry for my own amusement.
That's rather obvious.
So let me ask you again. Had you and your late wife quarreled?
I can't remember.
Well, did you ever quarrel?
Well, of course we... from time to time.
And on this particular evening?
I have already told you. My wife had gone to London. I dined with Mr. Crawley. We had no opportunity to quarrel. It's all over. Suicide.
Suicide? What about a motive? Where was the motive?
They didn't seem to think one was necessary. Oh, God, I'm so tired. I can't see, I can't hear, I can't feel anything.
Is Frank with you?
No, he's gone to see the vicar.
Why the vicar?
Something has to happen this evening, now that the inquest is over.
Rebecca.
6:30, it's all arranged.
I'll come with you.
No. Frank will be there. And Colonel Julian.
Colonel Julian?
He's the local magistrate from Kerrith. Thank you. You met him at the ball.
Well, why is he going?
No particular reason. I've asked them to dine with us this evening. I hope you don't mind. Oh. He's been very decent, Colonel Julian. Pulled all kinds of strings, made everything very much easier.
Let me come too.
No, my darling. I'd rather you didn't.
Excuse me, madam. Do you know if Mr. De Winter will be long?
No, Frith, not very long.
There's a gentleman to see him, madam. I'm not quite sure what I ought to say. He's so very insistent about seeing Mr. De Winter.
Well, who is it? Anyone you know?
It's Mr. Favell, madam.
I see. I think perhaps I'd better see him.
Very good, madam. Mr. Favell, madam.
I'm afraid Maxim isn't here.
So I see.
Wouldn't it be better if you made an appointment to see him at the office in the morning?
Oh, I don't mind waiting. How are you feeling? Too bad you fainting like that at the inquest this afternoon. Must have been the heat.
Mr. Favell, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm very tired. It's been an exhausting day. Why don't you see Maxim in the morning?
Yes, I've had an exhausting day, too. Exhausting, upsetting, and extremely unpleasant. Rebecca was my cousin, you know. I was damn fond of her.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We were brought up together. Always tremendous pals. Liked the same things, the same people. Laughed at the same jokes. I suppose I was fonder of Rebecca than anyone else in the world. And she was fond of me. All this has been a bloody shock.
Yes, I'm sure it has.
Max knows how I felt about Rebecca. He won't be surprised to find me here.
What do you mean?
Suicide. Do you call that justice? That doddering old fool of a coroner didn't know what he was talking about, did he? But we know. Don't we? We know it wasn't suicide, don't we?
I think you better leave, Mr. Favell.
Now, don't come the high and mighty with me. I've come here to do you a favor. A big favor. For both of you.
What sort of a favor?
That's better. I thought you'd be interested. You know, I could make things damned unpleasant for Max if I tried, if I wanted to. So you too come to that. Do you know what this is? It's a letter from Rebecca. Last thing she wrote before she died. Would you like to read it? Well, go on. I think you might find it interesting. Yeah. I was right, wasn't I? Don't you think that's interesting?
What do you want?
Ah, well, that's what I came to see old Max about. Now, the last thing I want in the world is trouble. You must believe that. Let's keep it all in the family. That's my motto. And we are all part of the same family, you know. You, me, Max, Rebecca. All part of the same big, happy family. Max is what you might call the head of the family, and I'm the poor relation, not a role I enjoy very much, to tell you the truth. In fact, to speak quite bluntly, Mrs. De Winter, I'm most unhappy about it. I mean, here's old Max with all his money, his house, social position, pretty young wife. And here am I with, well, shall we say, considerably less. I'm not a greedy man. I don't want you to think that. But with a settlement of 2,000 or 3,000 a year, I could jog along quite comfortably.
Leave this house.
Maxim,
What
no.
the hell are you doing
He's
here?
got a letter.
Get out.
Maxim,
I should listen to her if I were you, old man.
It's important.
What letter?
Well, show him the letter. It's the last one she wrote. Rebecca.
So now it's blackmail.
I wouldn't call it that.
What would you call it?
Well, think of your wife, old man. Do you want her to spend the rest of her life as the widow of a murderer?
I think you should show this to Colonel Julian. He's the local magistrate. I'm sure he'd be interested.
Maxim, please.
Good bluff, but it won't work.
No, it's no bluff. Colonel Julian's here now. He and Frank Crawley are dining with us. Had you forgotten?
Fair enough, old man. If you want to hang yourself, it's all the same to me.
In here, Colonel Julian. There's someone I'd like you to meet.
Good evening, Mrs. De Winter. Feeling better, I hope?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Frank.
Good evening.
This is Jack Favell, my late wife's cousin. I don't know whether you've met.
Yes, your face seems familiar. I probably met you here in the old days.
Quite probably.
Mr. Favell thinks there's been a miscarriage of justice.
Oh, in what respect?
I'm not satisfied with the verdict given at the inquest this afternoon.
Oh, isn't that for Mr. De Winter to say?
No, I don't think so. Rebecca wasn't just my cousin. If she'd lived, we'd have been married.
Good God. I see. Oh, well. Is this true, De Winter?
It's the first I've heard of it.
He knew we were lovers.
Yes, I knew that.
I see. All right, Favell, what exactly is your trouble?
This letter was written a few hours before Rebecca died. Read it. See if you think the woman who wrote that letter had made up her mind to kill herself.
I tried to ring you from the flat, but could get no answer. I'm going down to Mander's right away. I shall be at the cottage this evening, and if you get this in time, will you get the car and follow me? I'll spend the night at the cottage and leave the door open for you. I've got something to tell you, and I want to see you as soon as possible. Rebecca. Oh, did you go down to the cottage?
No, I didn't get back until 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was too late to drive all that way.
What did she want to tell you? Do you know?
No, I don't.
I see. Well, on the face of it, you would seem to be right. Suicide is neither mentioned nor implied.
Suicide never entered her thoughts. No woman would write a letter like that and then go off and drown herself. It doesn't make sense. It's impossible.
Then what did happen? Can you tell us that?
Yes. Oh, yes. She was murdered. She was murdered by her husband. Look at him. He can't even deny it. He hasn't even got the guts to deny it.
Because I knew I'd seen you before somewhere. You were in court this afternoon.
What if I was?
Well, why didn't you speak out then? Why didn't you show that letter to the coroner?
Because he wanted to try blackmail first. He offered to keep quiet for 3,000 a year.
That's beside the point.
What do you mean, beside the point?
No, he's right, it is. He's made a very serious accusation. And whether he was trying to blackmail De Winter or not, that accusation still stands.
He can't prove a thing.
I've got proof to hang you 3 times over. Aren't those holes in the boat proof you killed her?
Not unless you can bring a witness who saw him do it.
Witness be damned. Of course De Winter did it. Who else would kill Rebecca?
Oh, Careth has a large population. I might have done it myself. You appear to have as much proof against De Winter as you would have against me.
I see. You're going to hold his hand through all this, are you? You won't let him down because he's dined with you and you've dined with him. Very cozy. Well, let me tell you this. For once, I've got the law on my side, and I'm going to use it. Believe me, I am going to use it.
It's the law that demands a witness, Favell, not me. And you'll get nowhere without one.
What witness could there be? It's a private bay. You know that as well as I do. It's the Manderley Bay, and no one goes down there. Just a minute. Just a minute. There might be a witness after all. That fellow on the beach. What's his name? That half-wit.
Ben. Come on, Ben. You're wanted up at the house.
Don't tell me you're worried, Max, old boy. Don't tell me you're frightened of poor old Ben. You thought you were quite safe, didn't you, eh? Put the body in the boat, punch a few holes, and down she goes, never to be seen again. Rotten luck. Hard cheese. Tough, as they say in the States. Tough. I'll say this for you. You all stick together, don't you, eh? Real pals. No one gives anyone else away, not even the local magistrate. We must exempt the bride, of course. A bride doesn't give evidence against her husband, does she? Does she? And Crawley won't talk. Crawley knows he'd lose his job if he told the truth. Never had much success with Rebecca, did you, eh? Creepy Crawley, she used to call you. Look out! Here comes old creepy Crawley. Never mind. Your time will come. I'm sure the bride will be grateful for your fraternal arm every time she faints. When she hears the judge sentence her husband to death, that arm of his will come in extremely handy.
Come on, Ben. Look, there's nothing to be frightened of.
It's Ben.
All right.
Come on, Ben.
Hello. How's life treated you since we last met? Well, come on, Ben, don't be shy. You know who I am, don't you?
Eh?
You know who I am, don't you? Come on.
Don't be afraid, Ben. No one is going to hurt you. Now, we just want to ask you some questions. You know Mr. Favell, don't you?
I never seen him.
Well, don't be such a bloody fool. Of course you've seen me. You've seen me go down to the cottage on the beach, Mrs. De Winter's cottage. You've seen me there, haven't you?
No, I never seen no one.
You damned half-witted liar. Yes, you did. We caught you there last summer.
I never seen no one.
Yes, you did. You were peering through the window. We caught you.
I never seen no one.
He's lying.
Has he come to take me away?
No, of course not,
Can't you see he's lying? Make him tell the truth.
I don't want to go away. I've done nothing.
No one is going to take you away, Ben. Now, just answer me truthfully. Have you ever seen this man before?
I never seen no one, sir.
You remember Mrs. De Winter, don't you? No, not that lady, the other lady. The lady who used to go to the cottage.
Eh?
The lady who had the boat.
She's gone.
Yes, we know that. Now, sometimes she used to sail that boat at night, didn't she? Do you remember the last time that she went out? The time she went out and never came back?
Eh?
You were there, weren't you? You saw Mrs. De Winter go down to the cottage and you saw Mr. De Winter go in after her. You saw him and you followed him. Now, what happened then? Tell us what happened.
I seen nothing. I never seen no one. I'm not going away. I'm not going to the asylum. I never
You've seen me
no
scores
one.
of times. You can't believe a word he says. Tell the truth, you are.
Leave
Tell the truth.
Leave him, man. De Winter, you better send him home.
Ben. Ben, it's all right, Ben. No one's going to send you to the asylum. Don't be afraid. We'll give him some food. Would you see to it, Frank?
Yes, of course. Come on, Ben.
Ask cook for something hot.
Would you like some supper?
Payment for services rendered, eh? Done a good day's work for you, Max.
It was your idea to bring him here, Favell.
Yes, and I'm quite certain he saw something. He's just too scared to talk.
No, you can't prove that. In fact, you can't prove anything. You can't even prove your own story.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you tell us that you and Mrs. De Winter were to be married. But who can say whether that is true or false? You can't prove it.
How can't I?
What are you doing?
There's one person in this house who will tell you the truth.
evening, Mrs. Danvers. Won't you please sit down? Mrs. Danvers, first of all, I want to ask you a question. Were you aware of the relationship between the late Mrs. De Winter and Mr. Favell?
They were first cousins.
I was not referring to blood relationship, Mrs. Danvers.
I'm afraid I don't understand, sir.
Oh, come off it, Danny. You know very well what he's driving at. I've told him, he just doesn't believe me. Rebecca was in love with me, wasn't she?
She was not.
Of course she was. You know damn well she was.
She wasn't in love with you or Mr. De Winter. She wasn't in love with anyone. She despised all men.
That's just not true. We've been lovers for years, you know that.
And what of it? She had a right to amuse herself, hadn't she? Lovemaking was a game with her. She told me so. She did it because it made her laugh. I've known her come back and sit upstairs on her bed and rock with laughter at the lot of you.
Mrs. Danvers. Mrs. Danvers, can you think of any reason why Mrs. De Winter should have taken her own life?
No. No.
Favell, show her the letter.
I don't understand. If there was something she had to tell Mr. Jack, she'd have told me first.
You never saw her on that night?
No, I was out. I shall never forgive myself for that.
And those words, "I have something to tell you," convey nothing to you at all?
No, sir, nothing.
I see, thank you. Now, does anyone know how she spent that last day in London?
She went to the hairdresser's. She had an appointment from 11 until 12:30, and then she had lunch at her club. She always lunched at her club on hairdresser days.
Well, what else? What did she do in the afternoon?
I've got her engagement diary in my room. Mr. De Winter never asked me for it. I kept all her things. Would you like me to look?
De Winter?
By all means. Do fetch the diary, Mrs. Danvers.
"11 o'clock here, then lunch at the club. 2 o'clock, Baker." Who's Baker?
Baker. She didn't know anyone called Baker.
Here it is. See for yourself.
Baker. She never spoke of anyone called Baker.
If he'd been important, Danny would have known him. Rebecca never kept any secrets from Danny. I think we're just wasting time.
But he wasn't important. Why did she write his name in her diary?
I don't know, maybe someone who sold silk stockings or face cream.
Oh, there's something among the telephone numbers here. Baker, 0299.
0299. There's a mark against it. It might be anything. I mean, could that be an M?
Might be. It's not like her usual M. She might have scribbled it in a hurry. Perhaps it's the exchange.
Yes, of course, that's right. M for...
Mayfair.
I'll try it, shall I? 0299. Hello, operator. This is Mr. Crawley here. Could you get me a London number, please? It's Mayfair 0299. Here. And it is urgent, so would you hurry, please? Hello? Is that Mayfair 0299? Is Mr. Baker there, please? Who? Ah, wrong number, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm very sorry. Wrong number. It was a Lady Eastley. She was rather cross.
Try Museum.
Or Maida Vale. Or Mill Hill.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me try.
O299. This is Dr. Baker speaking. Who? Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Didn't I read about it in the newspaper? I see. Yes. Can you tell me what it's about? Oh, well, if you'd rather. Just a moment. Would 3:30 suit you? Good. I'll see you then, Colonel Julian. Oh, hang on. I'd better give you the address.
Roseland, 53 Carlton Road, Northwest 6. Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker. Yet another mystery. Why go all the way to London to see a doctor?
And why did she keep it from me? She always told me everything.
Well, perhaps she didn't want to worry you. I've arranged for us to see him tomorrow at 3:30. It'll have to be an early start.
6 o'clock?
Yes, that will be fine.
I shall come with you.
Yes. Yes, I expected that you would.
Well, since I'm unlikely to get an invitation to stay to dinner. Don't look so glum. The newspapers will soon be clamoring for your life story. From Monte Carlo to Mandalay. The experiences of a murderer's girl bride. I can see it all. Good night, old man. I'll see you in the morning. Sleep well. Walk into the car, Danny. Danny.
This time tomorrow. This time tomorrow they'll know. They'll know she was expecting a child. Everything will slip into place. This time tomorrow they'll know.
We'll have tomorrow night together, won't we?
Oh, yes, yes. They won't do anything at once. Not for 24 hours, perhaps. We'll have tonight. And tomorrow night, my darling.
When did you say it was?
Wednesday the 12th at 2 o'clock.
No. No, I'm sorry. I knew I was right. I'd have remembered a name like De Winter.
Who did you see at that time? Can you tell us?
Well, yes, I can't see why not. It was a Mrs. Danvers.
Danny?
She gave a false name.
Yes, of course.
A false name?
Do you remember this Mrs. Danvers?
I'm not sure. Just a moment. Yes, I do remember her.
Tall, slim, dark, very handsome.
Yes, that's right.
May we know why she came to see you?
Well, it's extremely unprofessional, as you know, but since your wife is dead and since the circumstances are so very exceptional, the woman calling herself Mrs. Danvers was very seriously ill. She'd come to see me a few weeks before, a gynecological problem, she thought, a pain. I took some x-rays, which showed a certain malformation of the uterus. She could never have had any children. But there was something else. And I told her this when she came to see me on the 12th. She wanted to know the truth, so I told her. The pain was slight as yet, but the growth was deep-rooted, and in 3 or 4 months' time, she would have been under morphia. An operation would have been no earthly use at all, and I told her this. The thing had got too firm a hold. There's nothing one can do in a case like that, except give morphia and wait.
Fred! Fred? Thank you for coming, Mr. Crawley.
What's the problem, Fred?
It's Mrs. Danvers, sir. I think she's gone.
Gone? Gone where?
I don't know. She didn't come down this morning, and when I sent one of the maids up to see if she was all right, the girl found her pecking. I went up, and she refused to speak to me.
Good Lord.
At about 4 o'clock, a man came up from the station for her boxes, and shortly after that, there was a long-distance telephone call for her.
Who from? You know?
I think it was Mr. Favell, sir. I had it switched through to her room.
But did you see her go?
No, sir. But I asked the gatekeeper to watch out for her, sir, and he swears she hasn't been past the lodge.
You're sure she's gone?
Well, sure as I can be, sir. I went up to her room at about 6:10, and it was empty. Everything had gone.
Extraordinary. Wonder where the devil she is.
I think she lied to me on purpose. The last supreme lie. She wanted me to kill her. She foresaw the whole thing. That's why she laughed. That's why she stood there laughing when she died. She always had her own way, even at the end.
What time is it?
2:20. We'll soon be there.
That's funny. almost looks as if the dawn was breaking. Over there, beyond the hills. It can't be. It's far too early. Funny. You can't see the northern lights in summer, can you?
Those aren't the northern lights. That's Manderley.
The road to Manderley lay ahead. There was no moon, and the sky above our heads was inky black. But the sky on the horizon was not dark at all. It was shot with crimson like a splash of blood. The ashes blew towards us with the salt wind from the sea.